What's up, everybody? It's your boy Mike.
This is Guillermo.
We're here with the first episode of Faith Under Fire here at Lifeland Studios.
Sir.
Join us.
Lifeland.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're here again, episode 1 at Lifeland Studios, Faith Under Fire, and we got a great topic for you today.
Oh, yeah.
We did our introductory episode. Hopefully you all got to get to know us a little bit better. But today we have a topic on the state of the church.
The state of the church, Mike.
Yeah. So we obviously, this is a Christian podcast. So we were thinking about it and like, what's going on with the church today? Like, where are we going? Where have we been? And what are our experiences? So to actually kick it off, I think we should play this clip that we found on Instagram.
Oh, sure.
And it kind of sets the stage, I think, for us today to talk about some things that we want to talk about. So whenever you guys are ready to cue that up, we can
play this clip right now. We'll cue it up right now.
85% of the churches in America are losing members. People try to say, well, COVID did this. COVID didn't do this. COVID accelerated this. The church has got to change. Not change its message, but it's got to change its methods. When you refuse to upgrade your business, you go out of business. The church is the same. If the church refuses to upgrade, it will die. When you only have 5 children come to the front for children's story, it's time to upgrade.
Yeah. When
prayer meeting has been reduced to 2 songs and 3 sentence prayers, it's time to upgrade.
Yeah.
When you're still doing 8-track ministry in an internet download society, it's time to upgrade. When your facilities don't epitomize the postmodern,
he's talking.
post-technological society we live in, it's time to upgrade. We must be willing to travel new roads to reach new people. You have to upgrade the apps on your phone. If you don't, your phone won't work. If you don't upgrade the church, it won't work.
Wow.
I want a balanced worship experience. We're young and old alike, black and white alike, English and Spanish alike, church member and visitor alike can appreciate, value, and respect one another's differences, desires, and purposes without being injurious to their fellow brother or sister.
Yeah.
I want a ministry, and listen to me good, that has businesses to employ its members. Our problem is not money. Our problem is a mindset. 85%
There we go.
That's good.
of the churches.
That's good stuff.
So, Guillermo, what is your like kind of first reaction to the things like this man saying here?
So it kind of brought me back to just how the churches are today, right? Like we have, especially in our circles, right? We have, we come from the small church storefront kind of, you know what I mean? Kind of setting. And even though it might seem like our churches haven't deviated too much or modernized itself too much, I do think that we have done some upgrades to our church experience, to our worship experience, which I think is good because, as the man said, we need to upgrade. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
In order to kind of catch up with society, right?
Yeah,
because I think sometimes we get too stuck in the past, right? And we just start losing people. Yeah. Right? Because we're no longer able to keep them engaged.
Yeah, I think he used like great examples. I always agreed with the concept, like, you don't change the message.
Right. Change the method.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think that's like one thing we see a lot of times is people are still operating in the 70s, the 80s. Right. You know what I mean? And feeling like that's going to still touch people the same way, but it's a completely different generation, completely group.
Let's worship God with no music. Like, what do you expect us to do? You know what I mean?
Right. Only singing songs from the hymn book, nothing else. Right. You know what I mean? Like that. Those are beautiful things, but it's not gonna draw the same appeal, as if you sing some maybe more modern songs and things of that nature.
And then what happens is that you see a divide between the old and the young. Yeah. Right. And the cultures and stuff like that. Right. Because then you have people who just, then you're way too modern or you're way too old, and it causes this divide between the body that's truly unnecessary, right? Because if we all decided to come together and just say hello, let's welcome in people, let's give them this great experience, right? Let's use technology to our advantage, you know what I mean? Let's use social media to our advantage. Let's use the tools that we have that are given to us as an advantage, right? There was a time when people didn't like preachers on television. right? Or preachers who will criticize television.
That's true.
Right?
That's actually very true.
And now we have preachers all over
every channel.
What preacher isn't on Facebook or on social media, right?
Exactly.
Like, so it's just a matter of we just have to learn to adapt, right?
That being said, though, like, do you feel like the what I'll call modern church has the same, I'll say, impact as like the older or the past generations? Like, even thinking about growing up, like, what are some things that you kind of wish we did today? Because I feel like one thing he was saying that I kind of disagree with a little bit is like, I feel like nowadays we treat church so much like a business.
Oh yeah.
And there's certain principles that can transfer.
Right.
But it's not about dollar bills, but a lot of churches make it about dollar bills.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one area of church that it's kind of getting very dangerous.
Right.
And that's why you see a lot more like personalities come forth, because people are like, what's going to get the money?
Right.
And it's like, but what about people's souls? Like, it shouldn't matter who's preaching, really.
Right.
It shouldn't matter who's singing, really.
No, absolutely. Because, and it kind of breaks my heart sometimes, because not too long ago, I was talking with a gentleman who has knowledge of church but doesn't go to church right now, but he has a lot of knowledge. And he was talking to me. He was saying he was visiting a church, and his experience was that he was visiting this church for like 3 weeks or so. On the third week, they pulled him aside and asked him that he needed to start tithing.
Wow.
Right? So he was like, man, I'm just trying to come here and just get a word and feel out the church and see if I even like it.
Yeah.
Right? If this is a place where I want my family to grow and stuff. And he gets approached about money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is like, it's crazy that our leadership is looking at people and seeing dollar signs, right? Versus seeing a soul that needs saving.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think that's where we're losing people. Right. It's okay to have, you know, your music up to par, right? It's okay to have your social media up to par, but and even the whole church worship experience. But we can't lose people just because they're not tithing, they're not offering, whatever, blah blah blah, right? Because if the end goal or the product is Jesus, essentially, and we're not giving that to people, right? That's at the end of the day, he's the bait. Right? We're fishing, he's the bait, he's gonna bring him in. But I think we just get so lost, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I was thinking about it, like, kind of like, again, the pros and the cons of like how we grew up versus how it is now. And I'm like, I feel like people are more concerned about presentation than actually having the power of God.
Right.
You get what I mean? And it's just like, it's a great show, right? It's almost like we got into the mentality of like you said, television. Right. This is the presentation. We were going to present the gospel to these people as this way. But it's like, what is your end goal? Like, do you have the anointing? Like, when people come, can their life be changed?
Yes, bro.
You know what I mean?
Because, you know, you're putting out this beautiful presentation, this great worship experience, but our souls being saved, healed. You know what I'm saying? Our miracles happening.
Right.
And I think that's what we're losing, because I feel like people are so focused in putting up a presentation, they're losing prayer.
Exactly.
They're losing fasting.
Exactly.
They're losing the vigils and different stuff, bro. I'm gonna say it because it needs to be addressed. I'm tired of going to vigils and only being about worship music the whole time, bro.
Yikes.
I'm tired of y'all singing up to 3 a.m. and not praying enough.
Okay, can I put a pause on you? So
go ahead, bro.
And this is why I love this, because this the cultural aspect, right? So for Guillermo, in the Spanish tradition, you guys call what we would call all night prayer or a shut-in. You guys call it a vigil or vigil, right? So he's saying, like, when he goes to vigils now, what are they doing?
They're singing the whole time.
There's no prayer.
No prayer. If it's prayer, it's prayer along with, like, as part of the music and the worship.
Exactly. Right. Or it's one person praying, and everybody's
just standing around.
Yes, yeah.
No, stop it.
And that's why I feel like we have a great look, You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of churches that have started to change in that way.
Right.
And see, it is important to update your look.
Right.
The aesthetic matters, right? It's like if I go to a certain type of restaurant, like, and it looks bad, it looks run down, I'm probably not going to eat there.
Right.
So it's like, we have to adapt that, but at the same time, it's like, is that all you're offering?
Exactly.
Right? You don't have a good meal. Now, you just look great, but you have nothing to offer.
Right.
And that's how almost churches become. Like, it looks great. Like, I have a selfie moment, Instagram moment, like, oh, my pastor said this clever thing. But like, after that's all said and done, like, did I change?
And pastors need to stop trying to be cool.
Sure. Okay, we're gonna go there. Okay.
Stop trying to be cool. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like too many people are conforming just to have quotables and have this, try to engage with the youth. Yes, that's one thing.
Right.
But we also need to teach the power of God. And teach people how to build relationships with God, right? Because we're losing the seriousness.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. I was gonna say that when we were like thinking about, talking about this topic in the state of church, it's like, I feel like people have lost that like sincerity when it comes to God.
Right.
Like, it's almost just like, now it's just a checklist thing to do. Like, I went to church on Sunday morning and I'm good. And it's like, where's God in the rest of your life?
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no sincerity. Like, I think about even, we would have services, people go to the altar, people crying out, like people coming off the street, you know what I mean? Like, we don't see that kind of stuff anymore. And that's what I miss about like the old church, you know?
And it was, something we were studying last week in church was Paul was writing to, I believe it was Ephesians, but he was saying that even in my absence, continue to practice, the good that I've taught you, right? So it's one thing to get fed on Sundays, but we need to apply it the rest of the week too, right? And I think we've been so used to just going to church on Sundays, going to that Bible study. We have great knowledge of the word, but we're not applying it to our daily lives. And I think that's kind of has been lost a little bit. And at that point, we start losing the seriousness of the gospel because people are no longer taking us serious.
Yeah. So speaking of that, like, when you think about even like your childhood or how you grew up in the Spanish, we'll say the Spanish Apostolic Church or Pentecostal Church, like, what are like some things that you miss that we kind of let go of now?
At least for me, because I came to Christ when I was 12, right? And the reason I came to Christ because I wanted God to change the situation in my family, right? Because my dad, he was drinking. They were about, my parents were gonna get a divorce and all that, just because of how bad things were with him. Yeah. Right. And I told God, can you just do something? I was 12, you know what I mean? And it turns out, my dad, he ended up going to church one night, and he came back home, and he said, when I thought he was at a bar or something, he was like, nah, G, I was at church.
Wow.
And when he was looking for a bar, he actually ended up in a church, and God saved him that very night, transformed his life. He never touched beer again.
Wow.
Right? And I used to hide beers from him.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, he used to bring him home, and I would just put him under my bed or somewhere so he wouldn't, so he won't see them, right? But then it turns out, like, he starts going in the church, and I'm like, you know what, Dad? I'm going to go to church with you because I've seen what God is doing in him and in my family, right? He just changed the whole dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And in me seeing that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to church. So now I get to church, and I see a bunch of youth in the front worshiping Jesus. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And they were all like, nicely dressed.
Yeah.
Like suited up and stuff like that. Shout out to those who still suit up. And man, I'ma still suit up on Sundays, all right? That's something I miss. I'ma still suit.
Somebody's mad right now.
Listen, just stop trying to be cool.
But I hear you.
So, right back to my point, right? This youth is like literally filled with God, right?
Yeah.
And I see the whole church start speaking in tongues, right? And as they're speaking in tongues, I say to them, I'm new, right? So I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
I feel like they made up this whole language so that I wouldn't, like, this was like some cult type stuff. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
But then it turns out, you know, I heard the music and stuff, and I was like, yo, I want to play drums.
Wow.
Right. And I get approached by the youth leader, Malcolm. Shout out to Malcolm. He's been a great mentor in my life. We're still praying for you, my brother. God bless you. So it turns out he tells me, G, if you want to play drums, you're going to have to fast. You're going to have to pray.
Wow.
Because it's not about just playing. It's about playing with anointing.
Hold on. Can we take a pause right there?
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing that I miss about the old church.
Yeah.
You didn't just walk up and preach the day you got saved.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like, you didn't just, like you said, you didn't just play the instruments because you walked in today and you gave your life to Christ.
He didn't say fast from 6 to 12 or 6 to 9 or Daniel fast with fruits and vegetables. Nah. He said, let's do a 3-day shut-in.
What?
Yes. So I'm starting off, I'm 12.
Wow.
12 to 14 years old. And he's like, we're going to do a 3-day fast and prayer.
That's crazy.
And it was from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We took about an hour break. 7 o'clock, we start all over again.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's just like all the way through.
People don't do that no more, bro.
No.
They don't. And I feel like they don't. It's almost like the same sincerity about God, right? Like they see an opportunity to be up in the front and they see an opportunity to like get attention.
Right.
But they don't realize like what the weight of that responsibility really is.
Right.
And I feel like that is our generation. It's just like, see me, here I am. Like,
right, because
I want your attention.
Because here's the thing now, right? We have social media, right? Which is a great tool.
That's true.
Amen. Glory. Thank God for social media, right?
Absolutely.
But not everybody can just have a chance to preach, even if they don't have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or at least a solid foundation of the word or anything, because they can just turn on TikTok and just
whatever
boom,
they want.
Right? Or go on Facebook Live.
Right.
And guys nowadays, they're not vetted by anybody.
No, not by anybody.
So it just, now we have like an oversaturated space of preachers and
yeah. I think about even like at my old church, just like, as long I grew up in that church, you know what I mean? Like, I never preached. Actually, before my dad started, they had me do a platform service, right? But it's like, even like my dad's philosophy when I would talk to him, he was like, you got to start off with the Sunday school.
Right.
Forget the pulpit. Like, if you can teach little kids, they have the shortest attention span. Then you can teach adults. Right. If you can teach adults and you have the anointing, maybe you could preach, right? Maybe you get, we call a platform where it's like you might have 2 or 3 younger speakers, like have 10, 15 minutes type of thing. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like you looked at it as progression. Right. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, like I can speak well so I can grab a mic. You know what I mean? And I feel like I miss that level of like intentionality in church, right? And like you said, just vetting people. Because it's like somebody's here a year, 2 or 3 years. You might not see them in 5 or 10.
Oh no.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, they were preaching, going hard. Right. They were evangelists.
And that happened a lot. I saw that a lot growing up. Where there's something I don't miss is that we had a lot of young preachers. Yeah. Who God was using, rightfully so. But I felt like they didn't have any leaders to look up to. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I feel like the pastors would just put these young people to preach and then they'll send them out to different churches. Nobody's checking on them. There was zero accountability, right? Wow. So then, the short span of that preacher or the lifespan of that preacher just like became a lot shorter just because they had nobody to be accountable.
And the Bible actually talks about that. Like, you should not put a novice up to preach because Satan can trick their heart and they could be full of pride. Right. And I feel like that's what happens, especially like when you're young, like you're not establishing God. Right. You know what I mean? You get in the call, you get in the text, you get in the email for somebody to have you preach. Like, of course it's gonna mess with your head if you're not grounded. If you don't have that relationship, if you don't have that old head being like, hey, pipe down, bro. Exactly. Like, you're going out too much. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I know my pastor, anytime you going to preach somewhere, like, you better come talk to him and be can I go? You know, get that permission.
But here's the thing now, right? Because, and this is why the church is a little bit in danger, right?
Yeah,
because now we have so many people who just get up and leave church.
Yeah.
If they don't like the leadership, or if they don't like a leadership's decision.
Right.
You know, they'll just get up and leave.
Right.
Right? So that's one of the things that we have to deal with today is just, you know, as leaders, we make decisions in the church, and then all of a sudden, so-and-so gets up and leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Right? Or they don't like that they were sat down for whatever reason. Because that's another thing. People need to start sitting down.
The church discipline?
Yeah, they need to start sitting. I know you don't like it.
Nobody likes that.
I know you don't like it.
Nobody wants to be put on ice.
And there's some people who don't care, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to do anything anyway. Right? But I feel like for those of you who like to sing, those of you who like to preach, stop going against your pastor. Yes, I'm talking to you.
Oh, we on fire today, boy.
Yeah. Listen, it's got to be talked about.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? Because the thing is, people are literally watching us.
Yeah.
You know, non-believers are watching us.
Exactly.
You know, it's not just the churches from, you know, from another state or that you visited or whatever.
Yeah.
People, non-believers are watching what you post. They're watching. Even you may feel like they're not watching, but they're
watching. They
you know, your
are.
Co-workers are watching.
Yeah.
Your friends are watching.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this dude's getting up to preach and sing, and he out here living crazy.
Living wild, bro.
You know what I mean? So
wild. You need
sit
the
down.
discipline.
Sit down.
Yeah, you do. I know we've talked a lot about, like, kind of the negatives of the current state of the church, but what would you say are the positive things, or what things come to your mind as, like, I'm glad we've made progress in this particular area?
Man, I'm glad we made progress just as presentation wise. I feel like the quality of our presentation has gone way up.
Yeah.
Even in the music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I feel like we had a lot of good music, but the quality wasn't there, so it wouldn't be up to par, right? It was just people just consider it like corny just because the quality wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I feel like the lyrics were just as good. The verses and the writing was just as good as some of the secular stuff. Right. So I just feel like the quality overall of our presentation, you know, even video wise, you know what I mean? I feel like, look at Lifeland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
they weren't doing this in the 80s.
Right. No,
you know,
not at all. And I think they would have benefited. I actually feel like, and I saw this on Ruslan's podcast, where he was saying that a lot of pastors would have just became YouTube content creators if they had this type of platform when they first started.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have that pressure of like having to pastor people.
Yeah.
You know, they could have just been great content creators.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think sometimes people have the gifting to be able to express their thoughts well. You know what I mean? But to your point, like, I always say, just because you can preach does not make you a pastor, right? Like, that's only a small percentage of what pastoring is. Like, there's great orators, there's great people that can speak well, but they just don't know how to deal with people, if we're being honest, right? Like, you are not a patient, you are not a kind person. Like, you just talk about the goodness of God, cool, but you don't need to be a pastor, you know what I mean? So,
you know, but the church has improved a lot, you know, and are giving back to the community.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I love the you know, something that your church does well is the backpack and drive and stuff for going back to school type of stuff. But you see a lot of people giving back to the community. And I think that's so great because, you know, if people are pouring into your ministry, it's our responsibility to also give back to the community as well.
Absolutely. I always think of that phrase, you know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
I
good.
feel like that's one thing
that's really good.
The modern church has started to adopt, right? Because I feel like we were going out into the community, but it was solely okay, we're going to have an outdoor service and preach the gospel, and that's good. Like, sometimes I wish we did more of that. But I think there also has to be a recognition that people have needs, and as much as we are called to preach the gospel, sometimes meeting someone's need first will help them hear the gospel, right? You see Jesus a lot of times, what did he do? He healed people. He fed those that were hungry, right? And then now it gives you an opportunity to offer a message that they probably wouldn't have heard if all you were doing is yelling at them like, you're going to hell. Like, no, like, you got to give them some hope. You got to show them like it's more than you just doing what I want you to do. I'm offering you something, and if you want to take it, you can. So I think that's definitely positive. I think another thing that we're kind of growing in is just even the mental health challenges that people deal with. You know what I mean? Whereas before, I feel like people would claim or write off everything as an evil spirit and a demon. You know what I mean? But also, we're finally getting to the place where we recognize like depression is a real thing. You know what I mean? And you can have the spirit of God and be depressed.
And that it's okay to go to therapy.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So I think those are just little aspects that I see now that we're in, just even utilizing social media. I think that is... It can go overboard, right? You can see people go overboard, but I also, you realize like the people we preach to on a Sunday morning might be 150 to 200 if you have a bigger church. You know what I mean? If you have a smaller church, it might be 50, 75, right? But you can literally get on and talk to 1,000 people in 24 hours.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a humongous advantage, you know, that we should maximize. And I know a lot of people are afraid of it because they're like, oh, you don't want them to use that against you. But I'm like, well, if you're not saying anything.
No, for sure.
You shouldn't be saying anything.
You're able to reach people from India and Asia and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's global, right? So I think the churches has improved a lot in that aspect, and in ways of reaching out. I think we've improved our communication for sure.
Before we do end, so where do you feel like the church is going? Like, do you feel, let's put it this way, do you feel optimistic? Do you feel worried? Do you feel concerned? Like, how do you feel about where we're headed?
Honestly, as objectively, or at least in I would say in our emotionally, right? Like, just looking at things, it looks like it's gonna, like the church is in danger. But I think there's gonna be a great revival. Right. And I know people say that all the time, right? But I mean it in the sense that people are just gonna start realizing that we need to dive in more into prayer and to fasting. And start building communities around us, not just in church, right? But just like friends, your circle of friends are going to be more spirit-filled relationships, right? Because I feel like, or the Bible tells us, right? Things are going to get worse. You know what I mean? Just globally, economically, and stuff like that. And I feel like the church is going to come to a point where we have to start sticking together. And I kind of look forward to that, right? Because we've been in a way we've been kind of divided in the body, but I think we're gonna start realizing that we're actually stronger if we're together.
I definitely concur with that. I think there's a lot of pressure. Kind of faith under fire. Faith is gonna definitely be zeroed in on a lot more, and I think it's gonna be a lot tighter and more of a struggle and harder to be a Christian in this day and time. But I also think I agree with you. That's gonna create an environment where a lot of the fluff of church, and a lot of the external things that really
don't matter. They're not essential.
Exactly. It's going to get stripped away, and it's going to cause us, I feel like, to really see God.
Right.
You know what I mean? From that, I think it's going to be birthed of revival.
And I said because this happened to me, right? I felt like I was working so hard to just make sure that we have a great presentation, right? Or a great experience. And then I realized that I was like getting stressed out. And it was taking... Martha. Like I was literally like just so busy just doing things that weren't even essential to the faith or to my worship or my communion with God. And I was like, you know what? I need to stop all this. Like, I need to start just, let me get back to the word and praying to the basics. Not that I stopped doing that, but let me just focus more on what really matters, right? And honestly, it turned around for me because now all those things come secondary. Look, if that live stream don't work, bro, just let it go. Keep going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If the mics aren't working how they're supposed to or whatever, just keep going.
Yeah.
You know, stop focusing on those little things that are going to get you distracted and stressed out and frustrated.
Right.
You know, because that was what I was saying to myself. Like, yo, I'm getting frustrated in the middle of service for, and it's not even the devil attacking me.
It's not.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just, I was just putting so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And I just had to, like, you know what? All that stuff is secondary.
Yeah.
I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
We'll fix it for the next time.
Absolutely.
You know, so just give yourself some space and time to.
That's great advice.
You know?
That's great advice. Well, we hope you enjoy this conversation with us today, our first podcast.
The state of the church. Hey, let us know what's the state of how do you see the church?
Yes, please.
Well, you know, what is the state of the church for you right now? You know, because you might be going through a different viewpoint, right? Or a different state in your church specifically. So just let us know. Comment below.
Yeah, please like, share, comment, and hopefully we'll be back with you soon with another episode of Faith Under Fire.